Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the epic narrative.
Well, look who's back. I can't believe you guys did 4 chapters yesterday. I know. I know. When we're in these books, there's a lot of details, and we at the Epic Narrative are trying to keep the narrative our focus. So I get it. If you're listening along, you're like, wait, where does it say that? Or why didn't he cover this? Or my pastor, that God bless him, go for it. You do read it. I did. I read it all several times. Oh, we want to focus on the story of God's love as it shines in these books. And we are in Numbers chapter 5. And we're looking at some practical things here, again, of just life on the road, right? First thing, command the Israelites to send away from the camp anyone who's dealing with defiling skin disease or discharge. Ugh. Yeah, it's just that word. Or discharge. Like, what is that? I mean, I worked at a hospital for about 6 months observing patients who needed 24-hour attention. And, man, there are discharges that you do not want to talk about. So this is, again, to me, a lot of this is just a practical thing, right? If people are sick, move them out. It's a good idea now. It was a good idea then. It's a good idea now. A lot of people do that. I mean, we had no, don't bring up COVID, but the idea of isolation is nothing new. It's been around for a long time. And it wasn't new to the Israelites either. This was just God reiterating that, hey, if somebody has some strange thing going on with their skin or something crazy going on that's leaking out of them, get them out from amongst the public. You guys are in close quarters. You guys see each other every day. You are in touch with one another every day. Don't want to pass this stuff around. And then he goes on restoration of wrong things, right? If you wrong anyone, if you take from them, verse 6, any man or woman who wrongs any other and is so unfaithful to the Lord is guilty, must confess their sin that they have committed. They must make full restitution for the wrong they have done and add a fifth to the value of it and give it all to the person that they have wronged. But if that person has no close relative to whom restoration can be made for the wrong, the restoration belongs to the Lord, and you can give it to the priest. All sacred contributions the Israelites bring to the priest will belong to him. Sacred things belong to their owners, but what they give to the priest will belong to the priest. So let me break that down a little bit for you. So taking from others, and there's more on this coming, but unlawfully holding money was a form of thievery. You owed somebody money, you didn't pay your bill, you didn't pay it on time, or they loaned you money. It was time for you to start paying back, and you decided, well, I kind of could use the money for a little bit longer, all that kind of stuff. That's considered being a theft. And if you didn't pay them, that was a theft. Another one is to swear falsely that you owe someone nothing. Now this was a natural thing in their culture, where you would be in conversation and you really needed to buy something or you needed a loan, and the person would say, I'll give it to you and you'll owe me nothing. So this was a way where you say, you owe me nothing, but it was a negotiating tool. And where we see that is, you can go back to season 2 where we talk about it in Genesis, where Abraham is negotiating for a burial site. And the guy says, you can have it. And he's like, no, I will pay for it. No, no, no. Take it, please. What's mine is yours. You can have it all. No, I am going to pay for it, and I'm going to pay for it with my own money. I'm not going to trade you flocks and stocks. I'm going to give you cash now, here. And he says in front of these, like he wants everyone to know, this is not, I'm not negotiating. This is going to be a cut and dry deal. And he paid an exorbitant amount of money for that. I mean, culturally speaking, way more than it was worth, because he did not want anyone to say, well, you still kind of owe that guy. You know, he gave you that plot of land where your wife is buried. He, you know, that you didn't ever, I mean, you know, he gave you such a deal on that land that you still owe him. Like this was considered a form of thievery as far as God was concerned. And he wanted the Israelites to know it, even though culturally they've been brought up with that kind of thing. Another one is stolen goods. So if you stole something, to make restitution, you had to confess to everyone. You had to bring 100% of its value back plus a fifth. And all of that would go to the person you stole from. And if there was no one to give it to, so let's say you stole land and you didn't give it back, and now you're being called out on it. You got caught. The records are read, and it turns out that 75 years ago, your family stole this or whatever, and then you're like, yeah, I need to make restitution. Well, you pay the value of that land plus 5%. But if there's no one there to pay it to, then you give it all to the priests, all that money, and they get to keep the land. It becomes their land. Other things, sacred things. These are things that can be designated but not delivered. So you could say something like, all right, I'm gonna, this group of goats are going to be sacred. They're for the Lord, because I appreciate, God has provided all this stuff for me. It's been amazing. I love him. I want to give a 10% of my goats to the Lord. You could designate them for the Lord, but it wouldn't necessarily go down to the priest's house and drop it off. You would continue to raise and care for those sheep or those goats or the donkeys or whatever, but it would always be seen as belonging to the priest, and you couldn't sell them for profit. You couldn't be part of it. They could not be part of a negotiation deal. Like, all my flocks, we're going to get into covenant, but and the person's like, well, what about those goats over there? No, those belong to the Lord. I dedicated those to the Lord. And the other thing the Lord was trying to get through here when he talks about stealing things, like these words are quick for us to read, but it's, again, the nuances of the culture where these words meant a lot. He's saying if you steal goods, a lot of people would get slave mentality. A lot of people steal because they believe it's justified. Now, we can get into workplace thievery all the time. This happens often. Whether you work in retail, you work in food service, or you work for corporations, there is a general idea that I can take, this or that or the other from this company because they can afford it. They don't need it. They'll never notice. Nobody here cares. The boss is never here. I get my job done. They don't, another way that people phrase it is they don't pay me enough to care. So I take this or I take that, or, they bought us, whatever. They bought us some food the other day. Well, I took it all. Why? Because they owe that to me. The number of hours that I've worked through my lunch hour or stayed late into dinner because of work. Well, they owe me. They owe me. That kind of attitude, that approach is cultivated in these phrasings of stolen goods. Justified. depriving someone of what belongs to them, even if they are wealthy, and they won't miss it. Even if they have no heirs. This was another time that people would steal. You're out there in your own little tent. You got your own deal going, or you're part of the village. Everything's good, but you have no heir. You're not, you travel. You're maybe you are an Egyptian convert, and you don't really have a Jewish family to pass anything on to. So people would be like, listen, we can steal their land. We can steal their flag. Who's he going to give it to? They have no heritage to pass on. They just traveled with us. I mean, there might be a nice person and all, but eventually when they die, it's going nowhere. So we'll just go take it. Again, justified thievery was very prevalent, as it is today. And this is even as a priest, if you take what has been set aside but not distributed yet, in other words, if you go to some of these farms that have sacred cows, sacred goats, and that's another thing, right? People would talk about, well, that's a sacred cow. It didn't necessarily mean that they were being offered on the altar. It just meant that they were set aside. It's another idea of being sanctified, right? You're set apart. So the priests weren't allowed to just come in and start taking your stuff, because you're raising that. That's part of your flocks. Now, you're never going to sell them, but you still can milk them and you can still shear them. And a priest just can't come in and take it from you. Even though he could justify that by saying, well, it's dedicated to the Lord, and that's what I do, and the nation is dedicated to providing for us, so I am going to take this cow. No, you're not, big fella. Let's see. So everything is from, you are forbidden from taking anything that God did not provide for you. It doesn't matter if you can justify it or not. It doesn't matter if they're wealthy or not. It doesn't matter if you think you are owed it, or even if they say that they owed it to you and they haven't given it to you yet. You can't go steal it. Thieving is wrong. And again, we're trying to break a culture of slavery where thieving, getting what you could, acquiring all you could for yourself, hoarding what you could, was the culture of the day. That's how you got ahead. That's how you built yourself up. You did all that you could for you and your family. And they are all, remember, they are moving tons of wealth that they got from the Egyptians. Tons of wealth. So they all have money, and they all are going to have land. And the Lord's like, we need to work as a family. We need to work as a nation, because you are going to draw all nations to me by the way that you behave. And you don't know how to behave yet, which is fine. I love you. I'm giving you some principles that will help you understand how to behave not as slaves, but as sons and daughters of a king. And I think in a lot of ways, we all continue to need to learn these principles, because it's easy to get caught up in the culture of selfishness. It got to get caught up in the culture of getting what I can for me, and then getting upset if you get caught. Like, well, you don't know. I mean, I watch these ridiculous confrontations that policemen have all the time, and people are like, their reason for why the cops can't arrest them is, do you know who I am? Do you understand what this will do to my life? You can't arrest me because I won't be able to get into college. This is my third offense or whatever. Everything's about yourself. Now we start a section here, which is kind of crazy. It's a test for an unfaithful wife. And And I know they give the Lord credit for all of this, but I do not believe the Lord is trying to curse anyone ever. I don't. I do believe that when a priest or Moses spoke, people believed that it was the Lord speaking, and that's the way it was presented. You know this. I've been through this before. So when you read these verses and it says, the Lord will curse you, this water is going to carry a curse and from the Lord, I don't believe it's from the Lord. I think the priests were making this up because this was a fairly prevalent thing that would go on. Now, as far as wives cheating on their husbands. All right. Now this is pure speculation. You have no evidence for your wife cheating on you, but you suspect it. So it says, so let's see. Speak to the Israelites, say to him, if a man's wife goes astray and is unfaithful to him, so that another man has had sexual relations with her, and this is hidden from her husband, and her impurity is undetected, since there's been no witnesses against her, and she is not caught in the act. If feelings of jealousy come over her husband, and he suspects his wife, and that she is impure, or if he is jealous and suspects her even though she is not impure. So this is how honestly, this is why I don't think this is coming from God, because this is ridiculous. You have no evidence whatsoever. There's been no eyewitness. She's not even pregnant. Like you have nothing to go on, but you're jealous. If the man is jealous, if he feels, you talk about preachers who go off on women making decisions based on emotions. Here is one that is purely based on the emotions of a man who thinks his wife might have been unfaithful because for some reason in his beady little head, he thinks she might have slept with somebody else. Now, like I said, culturally, that was not a stretch, generally speaking. Because women would often cheat, right? They were often married when they were youngins, 13, 14, 15 years old. And they were often married to a much older man. And in that marriage, her job was to bear him a son. And if she did, many times that was about it. She just wouldn't really ever sexually see her husband. Should I say that in a podcast? I can't. Okay. She would not be intimate with her husband ever again. In a lot of cases, maybe occasionally he would, ask her to come visit his tent. But in most cases, wives had their own tent. Their job was to take care of the tent city that was built up around them. Contribute both in the washings and in the mendings and in the making of new clothes, the dyeing of new clothes, the cooking, all that kind of stuff. That fell on them, even at the age of 13, 14, 15 years old. They give birth to a son, then there was a good chance he probably wouldn't be around for a while. Her job was to raise it. I mean, it's just weird. The Lord had a lot of culture here to break down. A lot of people look at these cultures and they say, we need to get back to the way it was. No, God's trying to break the culture. So I don't think that these rules came from the Lord, because to me, this is the whole premise for it is ridiculous. But you go to I know you're going to say, well, Moses said that the Lord said to him. I know what Moses wrote. I know. And I think Moses is sitting there writing amazingly accurate things from memory. And I think he's thinking through personal scenarios that he knows he's had to deal with as a leader. And he's like, oh, here's one. Let me write this down. And he truly believes this is coming from the Lord. So the man brings an offering, but he doesn't complete the offering. There's no burning of the offering. It's just a basic offering. No incense, no oil is put on it. Just the basic dry goods as an offering. And then barley, what is it? An ephod of barley flour on her behalf. And and a reminder of offering to draw attention around the priest shall bring her in and have her stand before the Lord. He'll take some holy water and a jar of clay, put some dust in it from the tabernacle floor. So this is just, again, this is to me, this just really sounds made up from man's perspective is what I mean. So the woman would be called in and he would say, you're being called here because your husband thinks you cheated on him. And she could be like, what? I didn't, or whatever. And then she'd have to put her hands on the offering, on the flour, and she would have to, quote, drink this holy water and dust from the floor. And again, like I said, culture, I don't think I finished that part, but culturally, it was not unusual, right? They're married. They don't spend a lot of time together. She's young. And then there's young men who know they're not old enough really to get married. And they see this young wife who has virtually, space and seclusion if she wants it. And they offer, an opportunity to get down and have some fun and not get caught. And it's, the whole concept of an affair often deals with, it often is around the excitement, the emotional, positive, intense, crazy emotional aspects of it. And so, like I said, a lot of young men would look for relatively new wives that they could sleep with that were not necessarily being paid attention to by their older husbands. And a lot of young women who would look around going, man, that guy's really cute and he keeps coming around here. So anyways, there was a lot of that going on. But this whole curse thing is not, I don't think it's from God. Like I said, it just sounds made up. So she swears it on an oath that she's innocent. She drinks the dirty water. And if she drinks the dirty water and she and she miscarries any time in her life, not just if she is currently pregnant, like that's what the husband was trying to do, was cause a miscarriage because he thinks that his wife is pregnant by another man. That's, maybe she put on some weight, maybe whatever. It's just like, oh, you cheated on me. So this is what he's trying to do, cause a miscarriage. So the rule, the concept that is written in here in the original is that if any time she miscarries, then she was unfaithful and it was the miscarriage was justified. How, this is insane. But there it is written there. So we're dealing with it. And if she never does, then she is innocent and always has been innocent. And the husband can keep having relationship with her and be of no fear and just, in essence, quietly be somewhat embarrassed that he was so jealous one day that he made his wife drink dirt water from the temple. It's just, I don't know. I just sometimes, as a man, sometimes I just can't wrap my head around what some of the things we've done. Oh, glory. All right. Next chapter, Nazirite vow. This is awesome, right? This vow has been around a long time. I think right now, as far as I know, the most famous person who's taken the Nazirite vow is Sean Foyt. Whether you like his politics or his music, he took it years ago. And it was only supposed to be for a few months, and he's never stopped. Just always kept it. And his hair is quite the mane. But he shaves his face, which in this context is not something that you would do. But so this vow really moves your focus from not being cursed, right, to a desire for a higher spiritual plane. All right. It's not vowing to withdraw from pleasure or lust. It's vowing to move toward a higher spiritual frequency. Now, this desire for higher spiritual frequency, of course, lends itself to a hierarchical mindset where there are those who are spiritually higher than you. Therefore, in concept, you should listen to them because they might know better than you how things should be or what should be or who should be or whatever. But the Nazarite vow wasn't something that was constructed for that. It was something that, might have took that on. But basically it had three main components. One, you weren't supposed to have any grapes, whether of any kind, whether to eat or drink. Your hair was not to be cut or even trimmed, and you were to never touch a dead person, even if your parents died during your time of being in this vow. So this was like considered a pursuit of holiness, right? So the grape thing indicated your indulgences of food and of the flesh and of, obviously of wine and intoxication and fun. You were going to withdraw from that in order to focus on the Lord. The hair was an idea of, your looks. And sometimes the hair was also seen as an insulator from worldly thoughts and interruptions. So if you had a nice head of hair, you were somebody who could protect yourself from worldly thoughts. That's I don't know, maybe that's where the turbans came in as well, because guys would go bald, but they had to protect themselves from worldly thoughts. I don't know. And then the dead bodies was even parents. Nothing was going to interrupt your pursuit of this higher spiritual plane. Nothing. Now you took the vow. It was at least for 30 days. That was the shortest amount of time you could do it for, but you could do it for years. And like I said, I believe Sean Foyt has done it for I don't know, 15 years or something. It's a long time. But it's an easy pursuit as far as that goes. Like, if you take this vow for a month, you'll be focused. Like, it'll help you focus. And when you look at your hair and in your face in the morning and it hasn't been cut or trimmed, it's like, yeah, why is that? Because I'm staying focused. When you come home and you don't have any wine, you're not eating the grapes, which was honestly for me, I thought about this the other day. Like grapes are like legit. If I had to pick a favorite, and I don't know, there's something about a perfectly ripe grape that I don't think you can compare it. I've had fresh mangoes. I've had fresh watermelon. I've had, amazing oranges and grapefruit. I love peaches. Oh my gosh. And plums and cherries. Like I love fruit. But for me personally, there's nothing like a perfect grape. It's just nothing like it. Like you have to hold me back from eating the whole bag. Like I just can't do it. I just love a perfect grape. So that was the idea. Like you aren't going to do things that you may love to do of the flesh. You're not going to do things that you may want to do that makes you look good or feel good about yourself physically. And you're not going to let anything interrupt this pursuit. So even if your parents died, you're not going to carry them and help bury them. Because if you touch them, you would become unclean, according to all the laws that we've already covered. And you would need to purify yourself, which took several days. And in essence, it would interrupt your pursuit of this particular vow. So if you took this vow, you had to, I would imagine there's some who'd look around going, okay, mom and dad should be fine for the next couple of years or for the next 6 months. I'm going to pursue a higher spiritual plane, a higher spiritual frequency with the Lord, and I'm going to take this Nazarite vow. Anything I forget? No, I don't think so. And then I want to scroll down to after they offer things as an offering to end the vow, right? So Nazarite would shave their head to symbolize their dedication. They take the hair and they put it in the fire as a sacrifice offering to the Lord. to symbolize their dedication. The priest is to place their hands on the boiled shoulder of the ram, which was the offering that they would bring, the thick loaf and one thin loaf from the basket made without yeast. And the priest was then to wave these before the Lord. This is the law of the Nazarite who vows offerings to the Lord in accordance to their dedication, and in addition to whatever else they can afford. They must fulfill the vows they have made according to the law of the Nazarite. So they had to do all this and do all that they could for as long as they could. Anyways, interesting thing. Now we have what has become, I think, quite a famous little group of verses. It's called The Blessing, right? The worship song, The Blessing. It came out a while ago, but you can look it up, and it is powerful. But here it is, verse 22 through 27. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the Israelites. Say to them, verse 24, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. So they will put my name on the Israelites and I will bless them. Now, this is actually considered 3 blessings as far as the Hebrew world is concerned. This priestly blessing was one that was it wasn't the only blessing that priests would give out to the people, but it actually was 3 types of blessings that they would give out to the people. And the first one had to do with possessions and days of life, right? Verse 24, the Lord bless you and keep you. The blessings of provision requires the presence of God to protect them and for you to receive them and recognize them when they come down. So when it says the Lord bless you and keep you, just that phrase was the idea that you are going to recognize what God has given you, and that you are going to recognize that God is the one that keeps those things for you. So you don't protect them. You don't overwhelm yourself trying to make sure that, everything is good. You rest in the blessings of God. You rest in his ability to provide for you. That's just in that phrase. And then in verse 25, it says, the Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. That's a second blessing. And this blessing has to do with revelation and connection in relationship with God. So this is possible because of the first blessing. All right. You have no physical daily cares because of the first blessing. So his countenance, his face, equals a true relationship. Right. You see him. You know what he is doing. You see his plans. This is something that only friends can do. And this is the blessing that's supposed to come because you're pursuing God, not because you're obeying the law. This is not a transactionary blessing. This is a blessing from the priests to the people, and they would repeat these 3 blessings over and over and over again because the Lord wanted them to be confident in his desire to be with them in a relationship, not in a transactionary sacrificial system. A system of offerings. So he's all right. So where am I? Oh, I got a lot of notes. All right. So because of the first blessing, you can be his friend. You can see his face. You can understand the relationship. You can see what he's doing. You can understand his plans. Then it says to be gracious to you. The grace of God is to bring you and to help you be liked by others. When people like you, they will listen to what you have to say about the thing that God tells you to say. That idea of being gracious to you means that he will make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. People are going to enjoy being around you because you are a gracious person. You have room for conversation. You don't get offended. Not offended easily. You don't get offended. A gracious person doesn't get offended. They're always in a state of understanding and kindness. This is a fascinating concept that God grants from the priests to the people, because of the culture of the nation should be one that's going to draw all nations to the Lord. This is not a culture of a nation that's going to be creating genocide and wiping out every man, woman, and child that doesn't agree with them. And that continues in the next blessing, verse 26, the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Now that sounds repetitive, but it's not. Here, the idea of face speaks of a lack of punishment for sin. May the Lord turn his face toward you. He's not going to look away from you when you sin. He's not going to turn his back on you when you sin. He's going to turn his face toward you because he's in relationship with you. And it says, and give you peace. So again, this peace is not a lack of conflict. This is peace when you enter and peace when you leave, after everything that you've had to say has been received. Now, please, this is to me a huge revelation. When you go into a place and you talk to them about me, when you talk to them about, quote, the law, I'm going to give you peace. So when you speak in such a manner that when you come into a place, they love to have you there, and when you leave, they're sorry, because the peace of God is still there. You haven't caused conflict by the words you used or the way that you said them. The harmony that comes between conflicting forces, that's the peace that he's going to give you. He expected his nation to have conversations with other nations who didn't agree with them. And he's saying, I'm going to give you peace. You're going to present things in the right way, and you're going to present them at the right time. And when they are all done hearing what you have to say, they're going to be in harmony with their Creator and with you. This really for me, the revelation here is that this is the way the law, as Jesus sees it, is supposed to be. That you are going to love God and you're going to love people, that his face will shine upon you. That you will not only be you will not only be his friend, but he will see you. Like everything you have will come from him. Everything you have will be protected from him, by him. Sorry, not from him, but by him. His face will be one that will be recognized because you are going to be friends with him. And when you go to speak to other people about it, they are going to be at peace because you are going to bring harmony into their lives. This is the essence of the law that Jesus taught. This is to me, these are the verses that need to be kept in mind when you look at certain aspects of the law and you think, ooh, it's such violence. Death to anybody who touches the tabernacle. No, this is not. Or those are not the filters you put it through. You put it through this filter right here. The blessing from the priests. That everyone will be in harmony with you. You will bring harmony to everyone you speak to because of the way that you speak and how you speak, what you speak regarding me. This is something for all of us to consider. Because there are many people who get an awful lot of enjoyment out of offending people who disagree with the Bible. We have to be careful. Right? We also have to remember that the Word of God is Jesus. And Jesus brought peace to everyone he spoke to. Oh, but they killed him. They did. They did. But he brought much peace and harmony to everyone. And they killed him for that. All right. We've already gone 40 minutes, but man, I hope you enjoyed our little run through the last couple chapters. Hope we learned a little thing about the heart of God and all of these rules. Again, I know for some you could be upset by the fact that I don't think the whole jealousy thing was from the Lord. I think that was something that Moses threw in there, and he in his heart, I think he thought it came from the Lord. I really do. Reminds me of a lot of prophets and preachers who think they have a word from the Lord, and when it's examined years later, it's like, wow, not even close. And that's all right. We can move through this. We don't have to get stuck there. We don't have to throw out the whole Bible because of it. Let's just continue to focus on Jesus, the true word of God. Have a good day, everyone. I'll see you again next week on The Epic Narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
Well, I hope this recording comes out all right. I'm currently sitting outside down here in the Florida Keys at work. Yes, I'm supposed to be at work, but I'm going to do it just a quick little Bob thought for the end of this one. So currently in today's culture, we are experiencing a lot of big ministries getting hit with we'll say mismanagement and bad theology, bad revelation, bad leader. I don't know. Anyways, I'm thinking of specifically, I know IHOP has been just, it's been hit. Mike Bickle is in trouble. There's no way around that. But now Daystar recently, at least at the time of this recording, fairly recently, they're just being devastated and with relational things, mismanagement of relational connections, manipulation, accusations of it at least. The Vineyard churches, down in Texas, Dallas, Grapevine area, huge ministries. Just again, relational mismanagement, abuse, accusations of abuse and manipulation and coercion, and just to me, all of these relational issues. And I don't know the stories. All I know are headlines and a little bit of what I read, and it's very discouraging, and it could get you to a place where you just sit back and go, all right, this is all this revelation from God is just crazy. I'm done with it. I'm out. The Bible's nuts. Prophets are whatever. Preachers, prophets, teachers. They're all just out for themselves, and that's the part that bothers, I think, me the most. Right? When you listen back to certain things, you listen back and you say, their revelation in this message seems like it has a manipulative edge to it. It seems incredibly specific. And then, now you hear the accusations and you're like, oh, it was specific. They were trying to hedge themselves. They were trying to make sure everyone was in agreement with them before and if any revelation came out. And that's the sort of thing, and I know it'll be upsetting for some, but that's the sort of thing that I wonder about. I wouldn't be dogmatic on it, but I wonder about it when we come to those weird passages in Scripture where details are given about, like this week, you suspect that your wife has been unfaithful. And you go through this whole, quote, revelation from the Lord, and it's just nuts. There's no way around it. It's just nuts. Now, could the Lord work through that? Yeah, he could. He could, in his goodness, he's not going to go anywhere, so he's going to be there. And if this girl is innocent, he could work through whatever it was that Moses decided was the best way to find out if somebody had been unfaithful. But to me, I wonder, like, what else was going on? We dealt with this earlier when these incredibly specific sexual sins were brought up. You're just like, whoa, like, wait, why? Like, how is this stuff going on? Clearly, this stuff is going on, or you wouldn't be bringing it up. But it bring it up, in writing, and now, of course, it stays in essence forever in the Bible. So those are the sort of things that I like to keep in mind when I read these sort of passages and interact with them. It's like, this is not a new problem. There have been people who have, I think, and many times, legitimate gifts from the Lord, and they get so used to hearing the Lord that it sounds like their voice, like it just sounds like them. And they hear themselves then come up with a, quote, revelation or insight into a particular problem, and they attribute it to God. And most people are going to agree with the leader. That's just the way a hierarchical system works. The hierarchical system tends to bring around itself people who are in agreement with itself. So it's a crazy world, religion is, and I think we just have to be careful. And I hope, I do not know the details of Mike. I don't know the details of Daystar. I don't know the details at the Vineyard Church or good grief, all of them that have come up in the last year. Going all the way back to Hillsong, and then there was the Hillsong in New York that went through something, right? Carl, somebody. Anyways, there's just a lot of stuff out there where you can get really discouraged and walk away. And I want to encourage you, don't walk away. Go to Jesus, because Jesus is the Word of God. Jesus will help you get the revelation you need when you read the Bible. And I think we need to be aware of that and reminded of that, and not discouraged by the human aspect of some of these leaders. And whether what they deserve, don't deserve, this is what I know. God's justice is to lay everything out in the light and then remove what isn't love and replace it with love. That is the justice of God. And that's what I pray for myself and for everyone. So those are my thoughts today as I sit out here in the sunshine under a palm tree. I hope you all are doing well. And I thank you guys for listening. And I look forward to seeing you again next week on The Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.